I couldn't believe my ears when the shrill voice on the other end of the phone demanded I pay $2,500 in overdue HOA fees. According to this stranger, I'd been ignoring their notices for 3 years. The only problem? I'd never received a single notice, and as far as I knew, my property wasn't part of any homeowners association. "This is Kimberly Whitfield, president of Oak Ridge Estates HOA," the woman stated with the confidence of someone who wore power suits to the grocery store. "Your delinquent status is unacceptable, and we'll be placing a lien on your property if payment isn't received by the end of the month." I pinched the bridge of my nose, exhaustion washing over me after a 12-hour shift at my auto repair shop. "Ma'am, I think you have the wrong house. I've lived here for 5 years and never been part of an HOA." Her laugh was short and dismissive. "Everyone in this development is part of the association. Perhaps you should read the paperwork you signed at closing more carefully. The fees fund our community pool, landscaping, and security services that benefit you directly." "I don't have access to any pool," I said flatly. "And I maintain my own yard." "Mr. Summers, your attitude isn't helping. I'll have our attorney contact you directly." Click. She hung up before I could respond. "I'm Isaac Summers, owner of Summers Auto Repair, a small but successful shop I built from the ground up after 8 years in the Army. My modest 3-bedroom ranch sits on 2 acres at the edge of what realtors call Oak Ridge, though my mailing address puts me in Millfield. The property was perfect, affordable, no nosy neighbors, and most importantly, no HOA. I'd specifically avoided homeowners associations after watching my buddy Tyler battle one for years over the shade of beige on his shutters. The thought of someone telling me what I could do with my own property made my skin crawl. The call from Kimberly Whitfield left me uneasy. I dug through my closing paperwork that night, confirming what I already knew: no mention of an HOA. My deed restrictions were minimal, basically preventing me from operating a pig farm or toxic waste dump. 3 days later, a certified letter arrived from Whitfield, Pearson and Associates, legal representatives of Oak Ridge Estates HOA. Inside was a formal notice claiming I owed $2,875, the original $2,500 plus a $375 administrative fee for requiring legal intervention. The letter stated I had 30 days to pay or face a property lien and possible foreclosure proceedings. My first instinct was to crumple the letter and toss it, but years in the military taught me that ignoring problems rarely makes them disappear. Instead, I called the county records office. "Let me get this straight," said Zachary, the patient clerk who'd been helping me. "You need to verify whether your property at 1742 Millfield Road is part of the Oak Ridge Estates HOA?" "That's right. They're claiming I owe them money, but I never joined any association. Give me a few minutes to pull the records." While I waited on hold, I pulled up the Oak Ridge Estates website on my phone. Their homepage featured manicured lawns, smiling families, and a sparkling community pool. The About Us section stated the HOA had been established in 1998 with the initial development and expanded in 2017 with the addition of Oak Ridge Estates East. I frowned. My house was built in 1985, long before Oak Ridge existed. The property line of the development was at least a quarter-mile from my land. "Mr. Summers?" Zachary returned to the line. "I've pulled the property records and plat maps. Your property is definitely not within the Oak Ridge Estates boundaries according to the official records. The development ends at Sycamore Lane, and you're beyond that." Relief washed over me. "Could you email me confirmation of that?" "Absolutely. I'll send the relevant records showing the official boundaries." Armed with this information, I called the number on the legal letter. After navigating an automated system clearly designed to frustrate callers, I reached a receptionist. "I need to speak with whoever handles the Oak Ridge Estates account," I said. "That would be Ms. Whitfield herself." "Please hold." A minute later, the now familiar sharp voice came on the line. "Mr. Summers, I was just discussing your case with our board. I hope you're calling to arrange payment. Actually, I'm calling to inform you that my property is not part of Oak Ridge Estates. I've verified this with county records. Nonsense, she snapped. All properties in this area are part of our association. The previous owner was a member in good standing. The previous owner was my great-uncle, and he never mentioned any HOA. More importantly, the county property records confirm I'm outside your boundaries. County records can be incorrect, she said dismissively. Our governing documents supersede those. I took a deep breath. Ms. Whitfield, I'm not part of your HOA, I've never been part of your HOA, and I have no intention of joining your HOA. Please stop sending me bills. I don't appreciate your tone, Mr. Summers. The 2017 expansion included your parcel. Perhaps you should hire an attorney if you wish to dispute this further. This time I was the one who hung up. The next day, I visited the county recorder's office in person. Zachary, a lanky guy with wire-rimmed glasses, greeted me with a sympathetic smile. You must be Isaac Summers. I pulled everything we have on Oak Ridge Estates and your property. He spread out several maps on the counter, pointing to a thick red line. This is the official boundary of Oak Ridge Estates, including the 2017 expansion. His finger moved to a point well outside the line. And this is your property here. So I'm definitely not in their jurisdiction. Not according to official records, Zachary confirmed. For your property to be included in their HOA, there would need to be a recorded amendment to the development plan, plus you would have had to sign documents consenting to join the association. There's nothing like that on file. I took copies of everything, thanked Zachary, and headed home, feeling more confident but still uneasy. Something about Kimberly's certainty bothered me. What was I missing? The answer came the following Saturday morning in the form of a black SUV parked in my driveway. As I stepped onto my porch with coffee in hand, a middle-aged woman with a blonde bob and oversized sunglasses emerged from the vehicle, clutching a leather portfolio. Mr. Summers, she called out, marching toward me with the determination of someone who'd never been told no in her life. I'm Kimberly Whitfield, president of Oak Ridge Estates HOA. I set my coffee down, crossing my arms. Ms. Whitfield. I believe I made my position clear on the phone. She adjusted her designer sunglasses, taking in my yard with obvious disapproval. The grass needed cutting, and my project car, a 1967 Mustang in various stages of restoration, sat on blocks near the garage. This is exactly why we need HOA oversight, she muttered, before fixing her smile back in place. Mr. Summers, I've brought copies of our governing documents to clear up any confusion. The only confusion seems to be on your end. County records confirm my property is outside your boundaries. She waved a manicured hand dismissively. A simple clerical error. The 2017 expansion clearly included this area. May I see that documentation? She opened her portfolio and handed me a map with colored boundaries. At first glance, it looked similar to what I'd seen at the county office, except the boundaries extended further, conveniently encompassing my property and several others along my road. This map doesn't match county records, I noted. Our attorney assures me this is the correct version, she replied smoothly. Now, about those fees. I'm authorized to offer you a payment plan. I'm not paying fees for an association I never joined, I interrupted. And I'm not convinced this map is legitimate. Her pleasant demeanor slipped for a moment. Mr. Summers, fighting this will cost you far more than simply paying the fees. We have resources and legal backing that you can't match. I'd face down insurgents in Afghanistan. An HOA president with a power complex didn't intimidate me. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. Look around your neighborhood. Everyone else complies with our standards. Your property stands out like a sore thumb with that project car and overgrown lawn. It affects everyone's property values. My nearest neighbor is a quarter-mile away. Nevertheless, as part of our community, I'm not part of your community, I stated firmly. Unless you can show me documentation with my signature agreeing to join your HOA, we have nothing more to discuss. Kimberly's smile tightened. Very well. Our attorney will contact you next week. I suggest you reconsider your position before this gets expensive. She turned on her heel and strode back to her SUV, leaving behind a faint cloud of expensive perfume. That evening, I called my neighbor, Zoe Anderson. She'd moved into the farmhouse down the road about a year ago and had quickly become a friend. As a real estate agent, I figured she might have insight into local property matters. An HOA trying to claim your property? Zoe sounded incredulous after I explained the situation. That's bizarre. Let me do some digging. 2 days later, she called back. Isaac, you need to come over. I found something interesting. 30 minutes later, I was sitting at Zoe's kitchen table, staring at her laptop screen. With her dark curly hair pulled back in a messy bun and glasses perched on her nose, she looked more like a college professor than a real estate agent. So I pulled the original filings for the 2017 expansion, she explained, scrolling through documents. Look at this map submitted to the county. She pointed to the screen. And now look at the map Kimberly showed you. The differences were subtle but significant. The boundary lines had been altered to include several additional properties, including mine. Is this legal? I asked. Absolutely not, Zoe replied, indignation flashing in her eyes. They submitted one map to the county for approval but are operating with a different version. That's fraud. Why would they do this? Zoe tapped a few keys, bringing up a spreadsheet. Money. Each household pays $1,500 annually in HOA fees. If they can rope in an additional dozen properties on the periphery, that's $18,000 a year they're not entitled to, I finished. Exactly. And most people probably just pay rather than fight it. Not this person, I muttered. What should I do next? Zoe thought for a moment. We need more information. Let me reach out to some contacts in the neighborhood. Over the next week, Zoe and I became amateur detectives. She contacted several homeowners in the disputed boundary area, while I researched HOA laws and spoke with other neighbors. The picture that emerged was disturbing. We met again the following Sunday to compare notes. Zoe spread her findings across my dining room table. I've spoken with 6 homeowners who've received similar demands from Oak Ridge Estates despite not being in the official boundaries, she reported. 4 of them have been paying fees for years, believing they had no choice. That's highway robbery, I said, feeling my temper rise. It gets worse. Remember Kimberly mentioned her law firm? Whitfield, Pearson and Associates? Zoe pulled up an article on her tablet. There is no Pearson. The firm consists of Kimberly Whitfield and her husband, Gregory Whitfield. They're not just running the HOA, they're profiting from all the legal threats and fees. I whistled low. So they're running a racket. A sophisticated one. According to my contact at the county assessor's office, they've been doing this for at least 3 years. The official HOA board probably doesn't even realize what's happening. Kimberly handles all the expansions and enforcement. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. We need to take this to the authorities. Agreed, but we need solid proof, Zoe cautioned. These people are well connected. The next day, another certified letter arrived, this time containing a notice of impending legal action. Attached was a copy of what purported to be the official expansion document, complete with a boundary map showing my property within Oak Ridge Estates. I immediately called Zachary at the county office. This document doesn't match our records, he confirmed after I described it. The map on file has a completely different boundary line. Can I get an official statement to that effect? Better than that, Zachary replied. I can give you certified copies of the actual documents on file. If someone's circulating altered documents, that's potentially criminal. Armed with the certified copies, I arranged a meeting with Detective Marcus Holloway at the county sheriff's office. Zoe came along for moral support and to share what she'd learned from other homeowners. Detective Holloway, a no-nonsense woman with 20 years in law enforcement, listened attentively as we presented our evidence. "Let me get this straight," she said when we finished. "This HOA is claiming jurisdiction over properties outside their legal boundaries, demanding payment, and threatening liens based on what appears to be falsified documentation." "That's exactly it," I confirmed. "And they've been doing it to multiple homeowners. This could constitute fraud, extortion, and possibly forgery if they've altered official documents," the detective noted, examining the discrepancies between the maps. "Have any homeowners actually had liens placed on their properties?" Zoe nodded. "Two that I know of. One paid $3,200 to have it removed." Detective Holloway's expression hardened. "I'll need statements from those homeowners. This warrants a formal investigation." Over the next 3 weeks, the detective collected statements from affected homeowners. Meanwhile, I received increasingly threatening letters from the Whitfield supposed law firm, now demanding $4,500 to cover legal expenses and non-compliance penalties. I didn't respond, on Detective Holloway's advice. The investigation needed to run its course. Then, early one Saturday morning, a knock on my door revealed Kimberly Whitfield standing on my porch, this time accompanied by a balding man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as Gregory Whitfield, attorney for Oak Ridge Estates. "Mr. Summers," Kimberly began without preamble, "this situation has escalated unnecessarily. We're here to offer you one final opportunity to resolve this amicably." Gregory stepped forward. "We've prepared a settlement agreement. You pay $2,000, less than the full amount owed, and we'll waive all penalties and legal fees." I studied them carefully. "And if I refuse?" "Then we proceed with the lien and begin foreclosure proceedings next week," Gregory stated. "The courts generally favor HOAs in these matters. When they have legitimate claims," I pointed out. Kimberly's smile tightened. "Our documentation is in order. But litigation is so unpleasant. Wouldn't you rather resolve this today?" "Actually, I've been meaning to ask about your documentation," I said casually. "I noticed some interesting discrepancies between your maps and the official county records." A flash of alarm crossed Gregory's face before he masked it. "Minor technical differences. Our versions reflect the board's intentions. But not what was actually filed and approved, correct?" Kimberly's composure slipped. "Mr. Summers, your amateur legal opinions are tiresome. Sign the agreement or face the consequences." "I'll need to think about it," I replied calmly. "You have until Monday," Gregory stated. "After that, we move forward with legal action." After they left, I immediately called Detective Holloway and reported the visit. She sounded pleased. "They're getting nervous," she observed. "Our investigation is making progress. We've uncovered similar patterns with 3 other developments they're involved with." "What should I do if they come back?" "Document everything, but don't sign anything. We're close to bringing this to the DA." True to their word, the Whitfields returned Monday evening. This time, Gregory had paperwork for an actual lien. "This is your final warning," he stated, holding up the documents. "I'll be filing these tomorrow unless you sign our settlement agreement now." I looked at the lien notice, then back at the Whitfields. "You know, I've been wondering something. Does the actual HOA board know what you two are doing?" Kimberly's expression hardened. "We are the board." "No, you're the president and legal counsel. But there are other board members listed on your website. Do they know you're collecting fees from properties outside the HOA boundaries?" Gregory stepped forward aggressively. "You're out of your depth, Summers. Sign the damn agreement." "I don't think I will," I replied calmly. "In fact, I think you should leave my property now." "You'll regret this," Kimberly hissed as they retreated to their car. The next morning, Detective Holloway called with news. "We're executing search warrants on the Whitfields' home and office today. The DA has approved charges based on the evidence we've gathered." "That's fantastic," I said, relief washing over me. "What happens next?" Stay available. We may need additional statements as the case proceeds. 2 days later, the local news broke the story: HOA president and attorney husband arrested in fraud scheme. According to reports, the Whitfields had been systematically targeting properties outside their HOA boundaries, collecting unauthorized fees, and placing fraudulent liens. The scheme had netted them over $300,000 over 3 years. The following week, I received a letter from the actual Oak Ridge Estates HOA board, now under new leadership. They apologized profusely for the Whitfields' actions and clarified that my property was indeed outside their jurisdiction. Similar letters went to all affected homeowners, with promises of restitution for those who had paid unauthorized fees. 6 months later, I sat in the courtroom as the Whitfields entered guilty pleas to multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and extortion. Kimberly's designer outfit had been replaced by a subdued pantsuit, her imperious demeanor diminished by the proceedings. The judge didn't mince words during sentencing. "You abused positions of trust to prey upon homeowners, threatening their most valuable assets for your own enrichment. This court sentences you each to 3 years in state prison, plus full restitution to all victims." Outside the courthouse, several of the affected homeowners gathered, including an elderly couple who had nearly lost their home to the Whitfield scheme. They tearfully thanked me for standing up to the fraudulent HOA. "I just did what anyone would do," I said, uncomfortable with being cast as a hero. "No," Zoe corrected, joining us on the courthouse steps. "Most people would have paid to avoid the hassle. You fought back." That evening, Zoe and I celebrated with takeout on my front porch. My lawn was still a bit overgrown, and my Mustang restoration project was progressing slowly in the driveway, exactly as it should be on my HOA-free property. "You know," Zoe said, raising her beer bottle in a toast, "the real estate market around here is going to improve now that people aren't afraid of random HOA fees." I clinked my bottle against hers. "Here's to property rights and nosy neighbors who use their powers for good." Zoe laughed. "Speaking of property rights, I've been thinking about that empty lot next to mine." "Let me guess, you're starting an HOA?" She nearly choked on her beer. "God, no. I was thinking community garden. Completely voluntary, no fees, no rules about what color your tomatoes need to be." "Now that's my kind of community association," I replied with a grin. As the sun set over my imperfectly perfect property, I felt a profound appreciation for the freedom to let my grass grow a little too long and park my project car wherever I pleased. Some battles are worth fighting, especially when they protect not just your rights, but those of your neighbors too. The Whitfields had chosen the wrong homeowner to intimidate. My military background had taught me to stand my ground when I knew I was right, and my experience running a small business had prepared me for dealing with bureaucratic nonsense. Their elaborate scheme had finally met the one thing it couldn't overcome: someone willing to check the actual property records. A few weeks later, the legitimate Oak Ridge Estates HOA held a community meeting to address the scandal. They invited affected homeowners, including those of us outside their boundaries, as a gesture of goodwill. I decided to attend, curious about how they were handling the aftermath. The new president, a retired judge named Howard Fitzgerald, spoke candidly about the failures in oversight that had allowed the Whitfields to operate their scheme undetected. "We've instituted new checks and balances," he assured the crowd, "including regular audits and verification of all properties within our jurisdiction." Afterward, several board members approached me to express their gratitude for exposing the fraud. "You saved our association from further liability," one confided. The Whitfields had been running things like their personal fiefdom for years. None of us felt empowered to question them. As I drove home that evening, I realized something important had changed in the neighborhood. The boundaries between Oak Ridge Estates and the surrounding properties were now clearly understood and respected, not as barriers, but as simple demarcations of where one set of agreements ended and personal property rights continued. My stand against the fraudulent HOA had done more than protect my own property, it had restored the proper balance between community governance and individual rights. That was something worth fighting for, even if it meant facing down a few Kimberleys along the way.